And welcome to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Lankowski. I am the owner of Milestone Franchising. I am a certified franchise consultant. I work with hundreds of franchise concepts across many different industries, and I am very excited today because this show is all about talking with experts in the franchising industry, and I have with me today Ken Meyers. Ken Meyers is the owner of Apex Leadership. Ken, welcome today.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So glad to have you, and you came from the Jenkintown area, so thank you for coming in studio today.
Absolutely.
And we wanted to talk today about Apex and about how you came to be a franchise owner. So let's get started with a little bit about what your background is.
Sure. Lisa, I always start with my background with my family because that's really the thing that's most important to me. So I'm the youngest of 9 children. My mom always said she'll have as many children as the good Lord wanted her to have, and I said, I'm glad he wanted you to have 9, Mom. So I've always been about family. I've got 2 kids of my own. I've got 31 nieces and nephews. I think I've got somewhere around 50 great nieces and nephews right now and counting. So family's just always been important to me. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, grew up in Northeast Philly and Tacony area. We moved to Ben Salem when I was in 7th grade. I went to Holy Ghost Prep, and then I went to Penn State. And then I kind of got into my career, and long story short, I made my way up to New England. I was working for 3M. I got transferred up to that area. I thought I'd be there a year or 2, turned into 25. And I came back to the Philadelphia area about 7 years ago in 2014, and I'd had a business up there. I sold the business, and I came back here, and I was kind of looking for what the next thing was. And I had gotten to the point in my life really where I've kind of been more about what can I do for other people rather than what's in it for me. And I started working with a franchise broker. Unfortunately, it was before I met you because I think I would have enjoyed working with you. But I met a guy, and he kind of got me, and I told him I wanted 3 things. I wanted to make an impact for people, I wanted it to be community-based, and I wanted it to be scalable so I could grow and reach more people. And he presented Apex Leadership Company to me, and initially I was like, I'm not so sure. And he said, do me a favor, just take a look at their website. I took a look at their website, and I was hooked. What Apex does, our mission is all about building leaders among our youth and making a difference for youth and building self-esteem, self-confidence, and creating leaders. And it just really spoke to me on a whole lot of different levels, and that's kind of how I got involved with it.
Wow, that is a lot, really fast, and that was great. So you were already an entrepreneur before you went into franchising, and typically what ends up happening is someone goes into franchising and then they go out on their own. You went and flipped it and reversed it, which is really interesting. So you already had the entrepreneurial bug, then you say, okay, I want to do something else. How did you come across the consultant? How did that happen? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was really around networking. I had, actually, I shout out to Bobby Fodish. I don't know if you know Bobby.
I do.
Bobby's awesome. She is the absolute best. And Bobby introduced me to the franchise consultant I worked with. And I actually had talked to her because I was sort of in the process. Because unfortunately, I didn't have the next Amazon or Uber percolating between my ears. So I decided to look at franchises. And I had talked to a couple of people that really, one was like hardcore used car salesman kind of thing, and I was just like, this is not going to work for me. And the gentleman I met, we sat down, we talked, and he just got me. He got what I was trying to do, he got what I was about, and we just connected. And then he brought about 12 or 15 franchises, put them in front of me, and Apex was one of them. And as I said, initially I was kind of like, no, and he asked me to keep it on my list. I had narrowed it down to about 4 or 5 franchises, and Apex was either 4th or 5th because I really wasn't interested. And he said, just take a look at their website. I looked at their website, and it just spoke to me.
And that was it.
That was kind of it.
And it's really interesting because when I work with candidates, there are a lot of times they're an open slate. Like they don't have any preference, they don't have anything. And you had these 3 points like already like boom, 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 which I think is great. And that was probably very helpful also in the process.
Yeah, I think it was. And I had sat down and really thought, I actually kind of took a little stock. And I said, I looked at my life, I said, when was I happiest? Because after I had sold my business and moved back to Philadelphia, I actually got into the commercial solar space for a couple of years. And again, I sort of wanted to do something that might make a difference out there, and I liked what solar was about. I liked what they were trying to do. I just kind of got tired of beating my head against a brick wall, and I also realized, people are like, you've had your own business for 15 years. How are you going to go work for somebody else? I'm like, I'm a kind of a go with the flow kind of guy. I'm like, it's not going to be a big deal. But it sort of turned out to be a bigger deal than I expected, and I realized I don't really think I really like working for somebody else anymore. So that's why I kind of decided to look at the franchises.
Okay.
And that's kind of, but I think you asked me another question that I got off track of and I didn't fully answer.
No, that was fine. Not a problem at all. That was excellent. So you land on Apex. How long was it from the time?
Okay. The part of the question that I didn't answer is you said I had, I had an idea.
Oh, you had the
What
three.
I looked at, I said, where was I happiest in my life?
Oh, right.
And I realized that it was when I had my own business and I had sort of control of my own destiny. And I used to coach. I started coaching my son in sports at 4 years old. I coached him in baseball and basketball and football and soccer. And I just realized I love working with kids. And so those kinds of things are what I had in my head, helping people, and the kid thing wasn't necessarily like a forefront, but it was something that when I kind of took stock of what really made me happy and what got me jacked up and passionate, that was a part of it. And that's why, when I finally looked at the Apex website and I saw what they were doing with kids and how they were impacting and helping kids, I was like, this is it. Nothing else really made sense to me at that point.
Fantastic. And how long from the process, from the moment that you started talking to the consultant to the time that you signed on the dotted line, do you remember how long that was?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that question because when I started, have you ever heard of SCORE?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I reached out to SCORE because I wanted to work with a mentor that had worked in franchising, and I worked with this tremendous gentleman. He owned, I think, 10 or 15 KFCs and really great guy. And I sat down and we worked together for about 3 months as I was doing my due diligence and looking at all this. And at one point he said to me, he said, Ken, he said, I've worked with a lot of different, business owners that were looking at franchises. I think you've done more due diligence on Apex in the 3 months we've worked together than guys that I've worked with for a year or more. And he said, at some point you have to make a decision. You can't just, and I've been recently told I'm a bit analytical. I'm starting to believe that. And he said, you can't just keep analyzing. You got to go with your gut. You got to, you've done the homework. You know what the pluses, the minuses, the struggles, the challenges, the opportunity is. Now you have to make a decision. And I said, yeah, you're right. And so it was probably somewhere around 3 to 4 months that I did all of my due diligence before I made the decision to buy.
And that's a reasonable amount of time. I understand what he was saying, but that's not an unreasonable amount of time. I usually say 4 to 6 months. It could be, and well, I've been dealing with the pandemic, so that struggles things. It stretches things out a little bit more. But 3 to 4 months is a good amount to sit there and really be looking at this and measuring it and trying to understand if this is the right fit for you and for your family. And how involved was your family in this decision-making process?
Not overly. I talked to my wife about it, talked to my kids about it, so they kind of had an idea of what I was doing, and they were just supportive. And my wife basically said to me, she said, listen, Ken, this is your business. You got to do what's right for you. And she said, it may or may not be the one I would choose. She said, but it's not, I don't need to choose it, you do.
Right.
So, so it was more just supportive, do where your heart leads you, I guess.
Right, no, and that's something that I always tell my candidates that, when to involve the spouse and to have them as part of the discussion early on, because the more support that you have and the more that you have that shored up, that whole piece, when everything else seems like it's like on shaky ground, it will be so much more helpful. Even though they might not have anything to do with it, it's still okay that they're going, I think I support you. I see this. I think that it's a good, business decision, because sometimes the spouse isn't involved until way at the end, and then the spouse starts to panic, and then that can throw the whole thing, down the river.
No, you're right. That's great advice. And I did get them involved early, especially my wife, and actually she sat in with me when I got the first group of franchises proposed. She was there because he said the same thing. He said, you need your spouse to be a part of it.
Great.
And so that's why I say I'm sure had I met you earlier I would have worked with you, because I think you get it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know,
it's important. It's an important piece of it. And I sometimes will have pushback, and often from the husband, and he'll say, why do I have to involve her? And I'll say, did you ever buy windows? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, didn't both of you have to sit down for that whole thing? And they're like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, this is buying a business. This is such a big decision. So having both partners involved from the get-go, it is very important. And, you know, I have husband and wives that are working together, and, you know, the wife maybe isn't on every call, or they're kind of in the background, but they know what's going on, and they're, you know, they're communicating with each other, which is really good and really helpful along the way. So you land on Apex, and how many years ago now was this?
It was 3 years ago, May of 2018 is when I bought the franchise.
And your area covers Montgomery and Bucks County?
Well, officially, my territory, as you know, with franchises, you buy a territory, right? So my official territory is Eastern Montgomery County.
Okay.
However, when I started, I was the only franchise owner in the state of PA, so I could kind of go anywhere. More recently, there was another gentleman that bought an area in Chester County, but I focused mainly on Montgomery and Bucks County.
Okay, excellent. And so 3 years ago, you know, you're in this, and I want to talk about all about what Apex is and what it is that you're doing in the school districts. How many locations are there presently now, fast forward?
Locations in what regard?
Franchise locations across
the country. Okay. I believe there's about 50 different franchise owners. We're in 35 states. So we're all over the place. We've as a franchise, as a business, we've served over 6,000 schools since, I think we've been around since 2010, I think is the first year. So we've served over 6,000 schools. We've impacted and reached over 4 million children. And we've raised in these 10 years, and this is net, that this is the money the schools are keeping after paying us. We've netted over $100 million for our schools.
$100 million that's been raised for schools. And we were just talking that you just had every franchise has an annual convention, and you just had yours last week.
Yes.
And it was virtual.
It was virtual,
unfortunately. Yeah. And how was that? What was that like this year? You know, you just came through this really difficult past year. What was the feeling? How was the vibe? What was the overall presence from the owners?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was interesting, and it varied, right? Because there were some areas of the country that weren't quite so restrictive on what schools could do and couldn't do. You know, there was one of our franchise owners down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He was in schools the entire year. It was like COVID never happened. And there were other areas, you know, like California, where couldn't go near a school. You know, I personally, in the last 18 months, from when COVID hit in March of 2019, and they started closing the schools down, I lost 14 of 16 schools. So it was a challenging year for me. You know, but the schools that you know couldn't do it back then because we couldn't get in the schools and things like that, they've moved up into this upcoming year. So I've got an exciting year ahead of me. I've still got more slots to fill. So if you're a school out there that is looking for a phenomenal fundraiser, we're available. I do have slots available. But it was just interesting because it really sort of depended on where you were in the country in terms of how it impacted you. Some had great years. One of the things that I will say is we pivoted like many businesses did, and we created a completely virtual program. And I was fortunate enough with the 2 schools that I did serve this year, I ran a completely virtual program, which means all of the lessons that we taught the schools, and I guess we'll get into sort of what we do in a little bit. Right. It was all done virtually through like a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom type of atmosphere. You know, and the schools held the event, the fitness event that we do, they held it in the classrooms. For each of the classrooms, so they could do it there, and it went extremely well. The kids loved it. They had a great time, and both of my schools netted over $28,000 in profit in a completely virtual setting, in a virtual environment.
That's incredible.
It really was amazing. The one school, they were a first-time school for me, and they originally had signed up in the fall and canceled because they were like, we really want it to be live. We don't want it to be virtual the first time we do your program. And then they called me after the new year and they said, Ken, our kids need something. They need a pick-me-up. They need, you know, what you guys are offering. Can we, you know, schedule? So we ended up scheduling it. They ended up netting over $28,000. Their normal major fundraisers would, year over year that they've been doing forever, right? They'd make about $7,000 with their major fundraisers.
Incredible.
So we quadrupled that in a virtual scenario. It's really amazing.
In a virtual setting.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear more about this. I want to hear about its Apex leadership. So there's a whole leadership component to this. And we're going to take a quick break and get a word in from our sponsors. So stay tuned. And welcome back to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Lenkowski, and I'm here today with Ken Meyers. Right before our sponsor break, Ken, you had mentioned that Apex Leadership has raised a staggering over $100 million across the country for kids in their school districts. So tell me about this program. Explain to myself and to the audience, what is Apex Leadership so that we can understand. I have an inside knowledge because as a PTA mom, I know my son had Apex in his school, so I have an understanding of it, but talk to us about that.
Yeah, and just on a little side note, it was fun when I had a chance to talk to your son earlier a little bit, and he started talking about the program and how much fun he had at it. And that's always awesome for me to hear, because at the end of the day, we're doing it for the kids. To me, when I first got into this, it was all about the kids, and I'm like, yeah, fundraising, yeah, whatever. But now that I've gotten into it and I'm seeing the kind of funds that we're raising for school, and I'm seeing the impact that those funds are having for their school, it's really become kind of a bit of a badge of honor of how much money we're raising. So, but the program itself is we're a fundraising company at our 30,000-foot view, but in our heart and our passion, we're all about building leaders. We're all about making an impact with our youth, and that's through building leaders. It's through building self-confidence. It's building self-esteem. All of those things are really integral part of what our program does. And the way it works is we have a 2-week on-campus program. All right, COVID obviously made some adjustments to that, so we have a virtual program if we need to. I'm praying every day that we don't need this anymore and we're going to be back in our schools. Right. But it's a 2-week on-campus program where it kicks off with a big pep rally. A pep rally is really just a way for Apex to introduce ourselves to the school. So the whole school comes together. It's usually held in the gym. We introduce ourselves to the kids. We let them know who we are, why we're there, that we're there to help them raise money, but we're also there to help build leaders. And over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be teaching them these 6 awesome leadership skills, and we're also going to help them promote a fundraiser for their school that's going to kick off in a big fitness event at the end of the 2 weeks, and it's going to be an absolute blast. So we kick it off with the pep rally, and the way the way the fundraising part of it works is each student, it's all done online, so it's really simple for the parents. The parents can literally share out a unique web page that belongs to their own child, and if they have multiple children in the school, you can pair the children together, so you're only sending it out once. And if people want to donate, mom, dad, grandmom, cousins, friends, whatever it might be, they can donate to both kids in one shot. And if they want to donate, $50 or $20 or $100. It can get split between the kids. They can do it to each, whatever it might be. So we try to make it as simple and easy for the parents to just kind of reach out. There's no going to neighbors' houses and knocking on doors and trying to sell things. There's no hanging out at the mall, you know, trying to sell things. We don't sell anything. All we do is have the kids share out their webpage and ask for donations for their big fitness event.
Right.
Okay.
And I was going to say that, you know, unlike the, I like Apex because it's not some sort of junky food that you're having to sell, or back in my day, aging myself with wrapping paper,
and
you know, the magazine. Not that there's anything wrong with any of these other things, but this has the leadership component as well as the exercise component, which in the United States we have a whole issue with, you know, not having a great amount of fitness and you know, not eating well. Do you talk about eating habits as well in your program?
It depends. So when, depending on the lessons, like our lessons, you know, we always have examples of the different lessons. So last year our theme was Mighty. This year our theme is As One. Each year we have a new theme that we teach at the schools, because frankly schools that tend to work with us tend to come back year after year after year.
Right.
So each year we have a new theme, and last year we talked about, I don't have all the new themes memorized just yet, but last year our Mighty theme, we talked about mindfulness, we talked about integrity, we talked about grit, we talked being a hero to others through your service to others, we talked about thinking ahead by having a plan of action to have goals and how you're going to reach your goals. So those are all the kinds of things that we talk about. And our why last year was your turn. So we talked to the kids about, okay, now that you have these lessons, our why was a call to action. Now you need to implement these, okay? Because one of the things the messages that we give our kids is you don't have to be 50 or 30 or 70 to be a leader. You can be a leader at any age if you're willing to think of others, put others ahead of yourself, if you're willing to be kind, if you're willing to help out. Like, those are the kinds of messages that we're teaching the kids. If you're willing to work as a team, you know, we talk a lot about team building. As a matter of fact, when in our pep rally, we literally tell the kids, for the next 2 weeks, you're no longer students, you're a team. Okay, and we explain that your team is your homeroom class, and every team needs a good coach. Your teachers are now your coaches. So we really talk about the whole team aspect of working together. One of the great things that I think our programs offers is that every student's included. You don't have to raise a penny to be included in our program. We teach leadership lessons in the classroom. We're in the classroom for only about 8 to 10 minutes, so we're not disrupting the teacher's day other than 8 to 10 minutes. It's a scheduled out program, so the teachers know when we're going to be there and when we're out of there, and we're very committed to being on time throughout the day. So we go in and we teach the kids these lessons, and every student gets the leadership lessons presented to them. We have these little wristbands that we give all the kids with the lesson of the day on there. So each day they get a band with the lesson for that day, and we always encourage the kids, go home and show mom and dad the band you got today and talk to them about the lesson that you learned today. So we really want the kids to, you know, go home and share it with mom and dad. What are you learning today?
Right, make it interactive.
Yeah, make it very interactive. And I've had so many parents have told me, oh my gosh, my son or daughter comes every day and they tell me about what they learned. They're so excited about this program. It's really an amazing thing to witness. So, so then we also have what we call classroom achievements. So as the classroom hits certain pledge levels that they're raising for their school, the entire class gets to participate in those classroom achievements. Even if they haven't raised a penny, there might be extra recess time, it might be a dodgeball game with the Apex team, it might be reading time, like the Apex athlete will come in and read to the classroom. You know, we have popsicle parties, pizza parties, fun things like that, but everybody gets to participate. And then when we get to event day, after all of our lesson days are done, event day is usually the second Thursday of the 2-week program. Everybody gets to participate. We have a fun run, where the kids run laps around a track that we set up, and they run a 1/16 of a mile is the track. So if they run 36 laps, which is what we try to get all the kids to run, at least 36 laps, that's 2.2 miles. Now, if I went to your son and said, hey, let's go run 2.2 miles, what do you think he'd say to me?
I'm good.
Yeah, I don't think so. Thanks a lot. But when I say, hey, let's put a track together and you get to run under a tunnel each time you go around the track, and we got music playing and all that, the kids absolutely love it.
And I helped mark the back of their shirt.
You know, it's
with the marks on the back
I'm
of their
glad you
shirt.
said that, because one of the really cool things about our program is there's very little parent involvement.
Right.
Now, it's not that you're not welcome to be involved. You can come and hang out. You can come into the lessons while we're teaching the lesson. operations, you can be involved as much as you want. But PTOs and PTAs and home and schools, sometimes they have trouble getting parent volunteers. And so we really do 98% of the heavy lifting for the schools, so they can really sit back and then actually enjoy a fundraiser for a change instead of being so stressed out about, making it all work. The one day that we do need some parent volunteers is on our event day, and obviously you experienced that.
I was a part of it.
Yeah, so it's usually a lot of fun for them to come out and see that and see their kids having a blast. But it's really, there's not a lot of involvement that the parents have to do.
Yeah, it's a great program, and unfortunately, our time, this goes by so fast, Ken. I could talk to you for another hour about this. One thing I know that we wanted to get across is that the labor issues that are happening across the country in every industry is affecting you in trying to get kids, great kids that are athletes that are interested in something like this, to be a part of this and to be a part of your leadership team. So please, reach out to Ken. This is something that's interesting to you, like working with kids, get in touch with Ken. And Ken, what is the best way for people to reach you, not only to be interested in having you in their school, but also for employment, for running these great events? Sure.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. So the best way to reach me is you can just email me. My email address is Ken M, as in Ken Meyers, K-M, or K-E-N-M, at apexleadershipco.com. You can also reach out to me on my cell phone, 267-630-3457. And I've also posted these jobs on Indeed. If you check out Indeed, one is labeled Youth Leadership Training. The other is labeled Athlete, because we are looking for people that have a lot of energy, have a lot of passion, love working with kids. If you have those qualities, if you're energetic, you're passionate, you love working with kids, I can teach you what we do. But it's an awesome opportunity. It's a great way to give back. It's a great way to impact kids and have a lot of fun. So, and I'm looking to hire 3 to 4 team members, and we're looking to start training around August 30th. So if you think you know somebody who might be interested, obviously, like I said, we work in the Montgomery and Bucks County areas, so it's probably better if you live in those areas, because we have to drive to each of the schools that we serve every day, and that moves around the Bucks and Montgomery County areas. So it's probably a little easier if you're in those areas. You don't have to drive quite as far.
Right.
But
okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, this has been great. It's always wonderful talking to another successful franchise owner. Ken, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for tuning in again to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Lenkowski. I am the owner of Milestone Franchising. To find out more about me, go to my website at milestonefranchising.com. And otherwise, please tune in to our show every week, Fridays at 1 o'clock.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.